June 5th, 2017 regular council meeting to order. Councilor Nuttall, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
Silent roll call has been taken and a quorum is present.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the May 1st, 2017 regular council meeting?
So move.
Second.
Jan, John, discussion? All those in favor? None opposed? Petitions, communications, citizens request. We do have two presentations tonight. The first one is Dick Andron from Hangar Wildlife Refuge, which will give an overview on upcoming events. Yep, that's great.
Good evening, welcome, and I want to bring greetings from Hangar Wildlife Refuge. I'm Dick Andron. I'm Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees of the Wildlife Refuge. I've been on the board for a number of years. As you probably know, because you're neighbors, that the refuge has been around for more than 50 years. It was started by the LaRouche family from Milo, who came down here, bought some land on the Pushaw, and then established eventually a 2,400-acre parcel that they then gave in trust to the University of Maine and established a trust to administer the property. The 2,400 acres that we have has about 7.5 miles of trails. Some of those trails are interpretive trails. Others are just plain walking trails. The refuge was really a passive recreation area until about 8-10 years ago when the board decided that it wanted to be an active environmental education center. And that's what we are aiming to do, and that what we are, I think, successful at. We have programs with the Old Town school systems as well as other school systems in the area. We have program for K through 12. We have a lot of work that is done with university students. Recently, we had an MBA team, members of a class who are taking an MBA program at the University of Maine, come in and look at all of our structures, and I shouldn't say physical structures, but all our committees and how we were doing things, and made some wonderful suggestions. I think we were an integral part of the community, and if you're like most of the people that we meet at Hangar, they've been by 8,000 times and have never come in. And what I want to make sure is that people come in and take a look at what we're doing. We recently decided that we're going to expand our activities. We have hired a person who is going to be working in marketing and trying to establish us as a larger presence in the greater Bangor area. And I wanted to alert you to the fact that that there was going to be more activity at Hangar, and following that, we are going to be hiring an executive director. We already have a naturalist on board, but we want to expand and be more proactive in this area. We want to be a good neighbor. We want to be an integral part of the Old Town community. I think that we have a great deal to offer, and I just want to give you a heads up and an official welcome, and hope that we see you at some of our activities. Our next activity is a big activity for the public. We have smaller activities going on regularly, but we're having a canoe trip using our war canoes, our 28-foot, 350-pound canoes. We're going to be, this is on July 8th. In the afternoon, we're going to take a trip around the islands off Greenbush, talk about the Argyle boom, talk about what the woodland islands are like, what the Native American influence is in the area, And we're going to be taking out 8, 10 to 12 person canoes and have a wonderful afternoon. When we're through doing that, we're going to be meeting at the Boom House. We've been working with Matt there at the Boom House, and we're going to watch the full moon come up over the Penobscot and just have a wonderful, wonderful time. And I hope to see you all. Any questions?
Sounds great. Any questions at all? Sounds like you got a lot going on out there.
We do. It's exciting. So
It's great. We appreciate you coming here for sure, for updating us.
Okay.
What time, so on the 8th, what time is that?
it's going to be at 3 o'clock.
3 p.m. And then the Boom House afterwards.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there's, I won't say too much, but there's going to be a reduced price for some of the beverages.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay. Next up. You guys ready? Students from the Old Town High School will present a summary of their stormwater findings from working in the forest next to Old Town High School. I'm going to have each of you just introduce yourselves.
Okay, so I'm Madison Hall. I'm a senior at Old Town High School.
And I'm Allison Swart, a senior at Old Town High School.
So we've been working in this class. It's called Collaborative Research at Old Town High School. And this is the first year that we've been studying it, and we have partnered with the University of Maine, the City of Old Town, and our school district, which is RSU 34. And we plan this to be a 10-year study.
Very nice. Can I have you just get a little closer to the
Sorry.
microphone? That's okay. You're doing great. You're doing great.
Put it at the computer.
I'm
Let's turn it on. Maybe.
You gotta love technology.
Oh, I know. That's my fault.
My battery.
No, I didn't put the receiver in the
That would make sense.
Let's see. There we go. Okay, so these are just some of the people that we've worked with. This is all the names of our people, the people in our class who will later come up and introduce themselves. Also worked with a couple people from the city, John Rouleau, I think he's up there, yep, right there, and Steve Rideout. And then also a few scientists from the University of Maine.
Very nice.
So the guiding questions we had, the two basic questions we had for this class were how will winters change as the years go by, and how much can we learn about what goes into the city's storm drains.
So behind our school, this is the Old Town High School, we have a watershed where pretty much all the water just collects right into where that arrow is. So we decided to study two neighborhoods within the watershed, the beach neighborhood and a hemlock neighborhood. One's a hardwood, one's a softwood, so we wanted to see the differences that would be within each one. This is the hemlock neighborhood in the summer,
Yeah.
and then the winter. And this is the beach neighborhood in the summer and then the winter. So you can see just by briefly looking at it that there would be differences within the two. And then within each of the neighborhoods we have this setup, and this is an I button which senses the temperature. We did it every 3 hours for our whole time that we were, whole winter. And this is just the depth of the snow. So this is how the temperature I buttons were set up within each neighborhood. There is 2 located under the soil at 5 and 25 centimeters. 2 located in the snow, 5 and 20 centimeters, and then 1 in the air. So we could see how the temperature would change as it went down. And then this is the things that we reported on in we had a little report made. The differences in the amount of water stored in the snowpack and the differences in the soil temperature. So we were seeing how these could change within the 10 years. these are just graphs that correspond with those questions that we created.
So we wanted to write like consequences with the climate change and everything. So if we had warmer winters, it would cause there to be warmer air, which would mean there'd be less snow or more rain. And if we had less snow, there'd be less water stored in the snowpack, causing there to be drier soil, possibly. And then there'd be less river flow in the spring if there wasn't as much snow, which may affect the fish migrating in the spring. And another thing is if there was warmer winters and less snow, the soil could be colder because there wasn't as much insulation on the snow, or it could possibly be warmer too from the air being warmer.
So these are just like some questions that we had about the climate change. And then on to some of our other classmates.
Very nice.
Hi, my name is Eleanor Brain. I'm a freshman at Old Town High School.
I am Cassidy Emmerman, and I am also a freshman at Old Town High School. Our question to be presented to you today is, how does the watershed fit into the city's stormwater collection system?
So right here, the black dotted lines outline our watershed, and the melted snow and water will always take the path of least resistance. The yellow contour lines are used to show the changes in elevation in 2-foot intervals. The water makes its way into the flat ground, then into then into the stream, leading to our open channel.
This is another map of our watershed. It is outlined by the red dotted line, and the outlet or the ditch where our water from the watershed enters the system is shown with the red circle. You can also see the outfalls, storm manholes, storm pipes, and ditches in the legend on the side. The path our water takes is shown with the black line leading through the pipes until it reaches the river and the outfall. Here you can see the two different drainage areas. Our watershed is drainage area A, while the rest of the city is drainage area B. Our watershed is what we like to think of as pure. It has very little effect from human interaction, as there are less people in our area rather than the city.
This is the ditch before the open channel was installed. All of the water from within our watershed drains into this 32-inch culvert. We cannot measure the cubic feet per second until John Rouleau designed a system for creating a smooth surface, smooth stream flow.
Here you can see circled in the following pictures is our Stingray 2.0, which is the device we've been using all year to measure the flow and temperature of the water going through our stream. Here is the data we've been presented to by the Stingray that was collected through the stream. It is in cubic feet per second, and you can see we have outlined the causes of each of these increases shown on the graph, including the loss of snow leading to an increase in water in the stream.
And right here is a photo of our stream the day after we had a really heavy rainfall.
Very nice.
I'm Tabitha Bell.
And I'm Megan Grindle.
We're juniors at Old Town High School, and our question was, our job was to measure the chemistry in the melted snow and stream water samples we've collected.
Okay, so these are images of how we gathered our data from the snowpack from the beach and Hemlock neighborhoods. Maddie and Allie would collect. They would gather the snow and they put it in a plastic bag and we let it melt, and then we could take our data from that.
What we have here is a picture of Eleanor taking one of the stream samples, which, as you can see, is a lovely feat to face. Each sample, we'd have to rinse the bottle out once with the stream water and before actually getting a pure sample. So each time we get a sample, she'd have to go into the stream twice.
Okay, so what we could gather was conductivity, pH, and true color.
And then the University of Maine collected chloride, nitrate, sulfate, dissolved organic carbon on a few, and true color to check our color calculations, just because we had some technical difficulties with our color meter.
Okay, so this image is how we gathered conductivity. So we take a small amount of water and we'd place it down there and it would measure and it would pop up here what it was. But it only reads by 10 and we're hoping to upgrade that next year.
And then over here we have the pH meter, which is a probe that you can just dip into the water sample. It only has to be in there for 30 seconds to a minute to get an accurate reading. And it's a very nice piece of equipment.
Okay, so one of the questions we came across is, can we use our natural watershed to estimate the impact of road salt on the stormwater?
Okay, so I'd like to explain what NADP is. The National Atmospheric Deposition Program is scattered throughout the state and throughout the U.S. They are a group that catches rainwater before rainwater, snow, any sort of precipitation. And it takes measurements on it for chloride, nitrate, and just about anything you can imagine. What we have here in the orange line is a baseline from the 3 sites that are most similar to ours for a average chloride in precipitation before it touches the ground.
Okay, and
Yeah.
dang it. Okay, so and the green bar is the data that we collected. Obviously, it touched the ground, so it has some impact there. But as you can see, some majority of ours is over 10 times higher than the median, the average. And our lowest one not even touching that bar.
And what we have here is a comparison of the chloride measurements we collected from our melted snow and stream water. As you can see, there is a multitude of difference between the 2 measurements. Our question is how much of the chloride in the stream water was provided by road salt?
Okay, so this is a diagram of how we can estimate how chloride is getting into our system. So rain and snow, obviously, and dry particles such as leaves and dirt. And we need to estimate what else could be getting into our system to increase that, and how much of it is road salt.
Do you have any questions?
Well, first of all, round of applause for a very nice job. That was a fantastic job. So I do have a couple things. So it's a 1 to 10 year plan.
Yeah, this is just the first year on our 10-year
On the 10 years,
plan to do it for
so
10
students are gonna keep coming
yeah,
here
so
for the next 10
we're
years?
graduating,
Right.
so the next class.
And just keep passing it on and do the information. John, you're gonna be working with these groups, I'm assuming, every year?
As long as you keep me around.
Yep. And thank you very much for
Will.
helping out. Humane, I believe people are here. Thank you very much for helping out also. Appreciate that. That's fantastic. That's great. How long did it take to do all this?
All winter.
All
Yeah,
winter
we
long.
took data all winter, and then at the end we collected it in the spring after the winter, after the snow was gone, and
Wow,
yeah.
that's fantastic. Any questions for the group?
Can we leave you with some copies?
Yeah, we'd like to have some copies. John, you want to say anything?
I would.
Yep, pass those right to Bill, and he'll pass them out.
I'd first like to say I'm humbled by the accolades and the opportunity to work with these young ladies. The science is real, and they did a phenomenal job at executing it. And beyond that, I think they've learned that there was an idea to collect data and to learn about the environment, which is important to all of us, but they also put the project together. All that stuff came from all over the place. There was a lot of people involved, but they had an idea, they reached out to people that could help, and then they learned how to put a complete project together and have a deliverable here, and it was a phenomenal job. I'm extremely proud of you all, so thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. This is fantastic. Now, hopefully you got extra credit or a few days off from school, I'm hoping. I'm hoping. I'm not seeing a yes or no. The year's not over yet there, Teach. I mean, we could help them out here a little bit.
No comp time.
No comp time. This is fantastic. So everything that's on there is in here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. This is great.
Yes. Real professional job.
Yes. Absolutely.
Very well done.
Way better than some of the presentations that we get from our staff during the year.
Thank you.
I'm just saying.
That's the future right there, Mr.
Yes,
Mayor.
yes. Well, thank you once again. We really appreciate it.
Excellent.
Thank you.
That's my name.
Okay, so we will move on to reports.
I'm gonna keep this copy, okay?
Thank you for the support. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to reports. Council President, I don't have anything. Standing committees, city councilors.
Yes, I do. Last update on piano, it is ready, painted, and ready to go into the gazebo.
Fix the wires? I thought you said something was going on with the wires, the mice reading the wires or something.
Oh, that was my car.
Oh, your car. I thought it was the piano.
No, my car.
Okay.
And I just want to thank Dave Ketch, painted it. Gary Sullivan brought it from the Methodist Church, which was donated by Eva Greenleaf. And Gary Sullivan has been wonderful storing it up there, and he will be moving it for us to the gazebo. And anybody who can play it that wants to. I gotta tell you, it's not in great tune, but it's gonna get worse with the weather, so we can't help it. But I hope the kids and everybody have fun. We might someday just have a little performance to dedicate it.
I think that's a
Haven't
great
decided.
idea. It's a great idea. Now, so you do have help getting it moved, though.
Oh, yes, it's
Okay.
Gary and his crew.
Okay.
Yeah, now I have one more thing. We do get a monthly receivable, monthly report on the loan, the UDAG loan. It is UDAG, isn't it?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is, yes.
And we have one entity who is about 5 payments behind.
Yeah, I've sent them a letter to let them know that they're 6 months behind.
6
and-
now?
Yes.
Said
Yep.
5.
So you
That's
you have
sad,
sent, okay.
Yes, I
because
sent the
that hurts
letter.
everybody. It's
Yes.
less money into the fund to loan out again, and it is not there.
I'm glad that we did reach out to them. That's good.
Yes.
You keep us
Thank
apprised of
you.
that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other councilors? City attorney? Nothing, thank you. Special committees, city manager?
Next Wednesday, we have a pre-mobilization meeting with Penta. Those are the folks that are doing the pump stations. They're supposed to start July 10th on the wastewater pump station projects. So that should get going here. The legislature said that they will have budgets printed by June 19th. That was what came out of Augusta today. I'm not really confident of that, but it's only 6 working days for them to get the budget done, but that's what they're saying. So I don't know if they've had some negotiations to move that along or what. But
Yeah, because this morning in Bangor Daily, I read that it was that $100 million for the schools, that was for education, that was holding it up.
Right. That's just what came through Maine Municipal. That's what they talked about. There's been talk about the Maple Grove Cemetery, about the city taking that over the past 8-9 months. I've reached out to Ed Barra about doing a title search on that. That's all part of that process to move that forward. So once we can actually figure out who the owner is, we can move forward on that.
Okay.
Where is the Maples?
It's, the gentleman came to us,
Doug Shorey.
Doug Shorey, how many
Yeah.
months ago was it?
Oh,
4 or
6.
5 months?
Yeah, it came to a meeting probably.
Came to a meeting, yeah,
Yeah,
6
I'd
months
say
ago,
6
and
months.
I did see an email the other day, and it sounds like that's the direction we need to head, is to find out
Right.
the title. So the location of it again?
Is that-
Out on
Bannock
Bannock
Road.
Road.
Bannock Road.
Yep.
Specifically where?
Out past the Peacock Church on the right,
Church on the right.
Or Southgate.
Okay.
just before the old mill.
The old mill, yeah, I know, wait, okay.
To keep us updated on that.
Yep. And the application on Juniper Ridge landfill expansion, Mike Booth bringing that up from CV and Mahar, so we will probably get that on June 8th, on Thursday.
Okay.
There'll be additional meetings. We'll get together the planning board. Jim Katsafikis will be here to kind of walk them through the whole process and what that will look like. So once I get some of that scheduled, I'll let you know when that will be.
Because that was last week, right? You went to
Yes.
something, yes, yep.
Yep.
Okay.
That's it for me.
All right, any questions for Bill? Moving on to consent agenda. New business items 1, 2, 3, and 4. Counselor Nuttall.
Resolved, the Old Town City Council hereby approves the suggested motions on their business items 1, 2, 3, and 4 as presented. Number 1, the City Council hereby approves an application from Cindy Jennings for a major event at the Summer Concert Series, July and August 2017. Number 2, the City Council hereby approves an application from Alicia Ryder on behalf of Old Town Cub Scout Pack 76 for a minor event permit for Cub Scout activities at Sewell Park. Number 3, the Old Town City Council hereby appoints Casey Lagarde to fill a vacancy of the Old Town Orno Fiber Corporation Board. And number 4, the Old Town City Council hereby authorizes the city manager to submit a corporate authorization resolution to People's United Bank that lists specific city staff along with their designated powers to execute day-to-day financial transactions with People's United Bank in their capacity as a city relative to the respective job requirements.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Jan, discussion? All those in favor? None opposed? Okay, moving on to public hearings and second reading of ordinances. Public hearing number 1. The Old Town City Council conduct a public hearing on the proposed FY 2017-2018 municipal, county, and school budget. Proposed budget calls for city expenditures of $10,035,357, Penobscot County taxes of $627,134, and RSU number 34 expenditures of $5,559,615 for a total city, county, and RSU number 34 budget of $16,222,106 with total city revenue of $6,099,643 for a net property tax requirement of $10,122,463. Open the public hearing. So I'm just gonna have Bill go Bill and Danielle can go first of where we're at. I wanted after that to kind of go over some items that I'd thrown out there that Bill and I talked about, and then kind of see where we're ending up with, where we want to look towards a tax number. I will state, though, that Bill and I, the rest of us were hoping to get some information about the mill on Friday. We have not received that. The university has gone past the deadline, and we do not know at this point when we'll hear some information. I did make 2 phone calls to the governor's office and 1 to the University of Maine Board of Trustees chair all this afternoon just before 5, so I haven't really checked anything to see if they've called back, so hopefully I can update you guys when I talk to them, but we were hoping to have some of that news before we had these discussions tonight, because that would definitely help out. So that being said, Bill, why don't you and Danielle tell us where we're at?
Since the May 15th meeting, gone back, and what I tried to do was, if you look, I made a copy. There's a highlighted pages here to kind of break this down a little bit for you to look at. A little easier than going through the whole blue book here after what we discussed. Things that have changed since that meeting. There was a small increase to the Betty revenues of $40,000. There's also an increase to the airport reserve of $30,000. That's on the revenue side. On the expenses, and going down through, there was some part-time salaries taken out of clerk's department, a couple $100. Capital outlay.
You don't have, what you're reading us, we don't have that paper, what you're
No,
reading,
I'm
right?
just
No,
going through
you're
here.
just going through,
This
right.
is all related to this
Yep. I just want to
tax
make sure
rate.
everybody's looking, so I just want to make
Yeah.
sure.
I can go through those line by line if you
No,
want.
no. I just, well, I started looking myself to make sure we didn't have it. That's fine.
Okay. The increase in the airport revenues matched over to an increase in capital outlay. The hangar repair that Lance thought was going to come in a little bit less, actually come in a little bit more than what he had thought. That's paid out of the hangar reserve accounts. That's no impact to the budget, but it's about a $30,000 difference from the original $90,000 outlay. It's $120,000. Health, life, disability was counted twice in fire and police department on one employee, so that was removed. That was $8,000 out of each one of those budgets. Part-time salaries in PD was reduced by $3,000. There was a $14,000 clothing cost in there that was removed. And there was $1,000 added back into contracted services in public works, and part of that was to pay for that stormwater GIS that we're going to add in for this year for a layer. When you add all that together and you look back onto this yellow highlighted sheet, that increase was in at 6.7%. That lowered that to 6%.
Okay.
That's the impact of those. We can continue on and looking if you want me to get down through some of the reserve accounts that you had talked about the previous.
If we could, where's my sheet? Can you talk about the 2 reserves that you and I talked about, and that Miles had mentioned that we should use and do something with them? And
right. A couple of those. There's been a community center reserve account that's essentially set there since 2004. There's $28,500 that hasn't been spent. I don't really know why, but we could go back and look and try to figure out why that reserve was there. It's never been spent. One of the things that we talked about doing was transferring that to Public Works and to Contracted Services to pay for the engineering work on Woodland Avenue.
And you had met with the Woodland Avenue committee.
Correct.
And discussed about if there was monies in the budget, we would do that.
Right.
And now hearing from Miles at the last meeting, there seems to be some extra money off into reserve somewhere to do that.
So we'd have to put that into John's operating budget, those dollars to offset that revenue, but
it wouldn't increase the budget.
No.
Whatsoever.
No.
We would just, by putting it in there, it would just show expense in the revenue.
Correct. The other thing. Yep.
Could we also take that money and put it towards reducing our 6%?
Absolutely.
You could. That's an option. That's
Yep.
I'm just going down through those just to discuss them. You guys,
Yep.
you can give me whatever direction you want to go in. I'm just
Right.
kind of recapping what you talked about.
Yep.
There was a Juniper Ridge Landfill Reserve account in there that had roughly $35,000 in it. I know that last year we talked about bringing back the wayfinding signs, and that was something we had discussed that was a possibility if you wanted to offset the cost of those with that reserve account. Again, we'd create a separate line in the economic development budget for those wayfinding signs, and then that would offset that, so that wouldn't impact the budget unless you decided to
Continue
use
it
a-
for next year, the
Right.
following year after that. But if we pay for this at one time, then that line would be wiped out.
Right. We wouldn't have a wayfinding sign
Line going forward.
going forward.
Okay, so those are the two reserves.
Same
And
question would apply to that account also.
Yes.
yes.
Yep.
Yep, absolutely. The only reason why we brought those up, because Bill and John had met with that group from Woodland Avenue, and they talked about if there was monies available to do a survey. That was one suggestion Bill and I looked at. The other one was about when Ron presented to us about the wayfinding signs, trying to find money for that. It goes back to that money, that other reserve that Miles mentioned that's just been sitting, both those have just been sitting there. But you are 100% correct. We can use that to offset the 6% as well as other monies and reserves or fund balance, however you want to say it. You know, we're at 6% now. If we decide to tell Bill to reduce the budget by another 100,000, which I believe he can, him and I have thrown out some areas as far as the gravel roads. We say gravel roads. The gravel roads are taken care of now under John's budget as is. This was just additional monies that he.
I had asked John to go out and look at, there's 18 miles of road. I'd asked him to go out and look at if he did additional drainage, culvert costs, road fabric, you know, what would that cost be if you wanted to go above your current operational budget? So he went out and looked at that. That $68,904 is in his budget right now. He can maintain the gravel roads in town as he currently does.
As he has been without
As he
that.
has been without that.
Right.
That was additional to do extra work there. That could come out of the budget.
Could we identify where that, is that all on Woodland Avenue? or is
No,
it
that's
Avenue
all the
all
that's
over town?
18 miles of road.
Yeah, it's all the roads.
That's everything.
But right now, under his current budget, he maintains them.
Correct. They're grading and doing that work, but this, I asked him to look at that because there was a concern about the condition of gravel roads. So if he had to try to make additional improvements, what would that cost be?
Right.
And that's a separate line in his budget. It's never been in there before. So if you look back in the detail, that's $68,904 in a separate gravel road account in his budget.
Right. The other one was the heavy equipment. I know that night when I was looking for the future, that I brought up numerous times, that tried to take some of that reserve to hold back, and that was $37,500 that we could take out of heavy equipment everything would be covered under heavy equipment. This is just an additional monies to keep
And I
it
think
going forward.
that list is,
That is in your packet on that one.
that's in the
I
packet.
think it's the last page of your packet, maybe.
Next to the last page. So you could reduce that,
Second last page.
that heavy equipment line by $37,500.
The second to
Reduce
last
your
page.
budget. So that, between the gravel road and this, that's about $106,000 you could reduce the budget by if you decided you wanted to take those.
And then that would take the percent from 6% down to 5% without even touching any
It's not enough.
fund balance or reserves. You can go further. So I guess what I was hoping to get out of everybody is what they wanted to do as far as those items that Bill and I threw out there, to take it from 6 to 5, or doing something different with the monies we've talked about so far. And then once we figure out that, at that point, how far do we want to go down? How much money do we want to go down? I mean, am I right on that? If you're doing the calculation, if you took the 68 plus the 37.5, that takes us to what, Danielle?
4.8.
Takes down to 4.8.
4.8.
Oh, sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll give you that.
So 4.8 without even touching anything, as far as reserves, that type of thing. And I know what, I think what you're thinking of, those other two accounts, we could definitely use that to even go further with. But I also think the wayfinding signs, I think that's very important. I think, people have been talking about that on the committee. I think this is a step to show that, the council does
The
care.
106 does not include that, those two?
Correct.
That's correct. It doesn't even include it. Because that, if I understand it right, it wipes it off. If we use that for the signs, it just,
We have to add the expense in
you have
of
to add the
the
expense in,
signs.
but that revenue from that reserve just wipes that out.
Okay, but how I look at that, and I may be alone in the world, I'm not saying we should or shouldn't do the signs, and I'm not saying we should or shouldn't do the other one.
Right.
Okay? But what we're doing is we're taking two items that are in the budget and we're not counting towards the budget.
I think you
Regardless
are.
of how you pay for them.
I think you're gonna, right? You would put them in the expense line.
Then
You put those-
if we put that 63,000 back in there, you're no longer at 4.8%.
That's the question. That's kind of what I,
You're not at 4.8%.
Because you've raised it
If
up.
you didn't take that money out of reserve to pay for it, you're taking it out ahead of time, out of reserve to pay for those two items.
Stan
They're
and I
still
had it,
budget items. You can still cut them or not cut them, however you feel.
but there's
But you're
added
taking
to
them
the
out of
budget.
reserves one way or the other.
Yeah, it's gonna come out, if you don't take the reserves to pay for those two, you're gonna take it to lower the 4.8%. So you're gonna add it in there now, which puts us at roughly 5.5%, correctly?
Yeah.
We had a healthy debate the other night on this, Mr.
So
Stan.
basically, we're at 5.5% if we take those two out and put these two in.
If we
You
do,
really can't say it any other way, because you're taking money out of reserve to lower those.
is that right, Danielle?
Yes.
See, I tried to tell you the other night. And I'm not saying they're not good items or
Right,
not.
but what-
I'm saying that they need to be in there, and we need to
Yes.
say we're at 5.5%
5%.
with them in there and these other two out.
Even though we know they're gonna offset each other, but he's right, we're gonna be up that high.
You're just taking that money out of reserve and paying those to
offset
start
that.
with. We're
To
saying that
offset.
those are that important, and we want to pay for them out of reserve.
Right. So,
But you're gonna lower the other budget out of some other reserve account
yes,
from the 4.8 down to something. So
Right.
that needs to be all one lump sum, is what I'm saying.
yes.
We might take 63,000 out of reserve to lower 200,000 plus that 63.
Yes.
Does that make sense to everybody?
It does, because you're basically saying with that you would add, you want to take out another 200,000 to get,
I'm not saying that, I'm saying if you did.
if we did.
Yeah.
So that would
You
take
gotta
us,
count those buckets
Right.
all coming out of reserve to lower us from 5.5 if we did so.
so if we go, but the numbers you're throwing at, if we go 5.5, do another 200,000, that takes us down to 3.5.
Yes, approximately.
Approximately.
Yes. But what the part that you're missing as well, you guys are speaking the same thing, is that we're gonna add in the expense of the 63,000 to do the projects, but then we're gonna take the money out of the reserves to pay for it.
Correct.
We're going, yes, we're at a 5.5, but when we take it out of reserve, that brings us back down to the 4.8. If we take out an additional 200,000, that brings us down to 2.7.
But you take it, you
Right.
could list any budget item. We could
Correct.
say, equipment for the fire department.
Correct.
It's the same as saying signs for the road.
Yes.
Yeah, but the only
They're
thing, I'm
taking them
confused
both out,
at
they're
now.
both in the
though.
budget, and you're taking money out of reserve to pay for them.
Right. He's saying, right, because right now it's not in the budget, so if we just take out a reserve, we're lowering it, which is what you're saying.
Right.
But what he's saying is you have to have it in there first before you can take it out of reserve and lower it.
So my question is, I guess, where are I just got confused by, are we at a if we use 200,000, the two numbers he's talking about, are we at a 3.5 or a 2.7?
2.7.
We are at 2.7.
Yes.
If you take
And you're both happy.
263,000 out.
Right, right.
Of reserve.
Yes. And if you don't take it out of reserve, you're at 3.4. If you leave the two reserves alone and you take out 200,000, you're at a 3.4% increase.
And this is counting the 100,000 that Bill and I
Yes.
had suggested, the gravel roads and the heavy equipment,
Yes. Taking those out of the budget.
taking those out of the budget, but we'd be at a 2.7 if we do the,
Reserve.
Okay.
If you wanna put those items in, you're at 3.4, the signs and the other one.
Yes. But we still have to find a way to trim the budget 200,000.
Yes, yes, if we decide to take 200,000 more out of a fund balance to offset it.
Correct.
And that, the reason I'm saying that is because I thought we were gonna have some news on Friday that was gonna make this an easy decision.
Mhm.
We don't have that news yet, but I'm hoping that before our final reading that we will, which will make that decision a lot easier.
Mhm.
So what does everybody think from hearing what we have? The items that we're talking about, the
I
numbers that
think
we
the
want.
discussion you need to have is it worth it to have the signs? And is it worth it to have the other one? Are those valid budget items? If they are, you put them in there and then you worry about getting it out. If they're not, then we don't need to carry on the discussion.
Oh, no, I think at the end of the day, you're right, that if we decide to have them, they need to go in the budget on the expense. Absolutely.
That's what we need to decide sitting here right now.
Yeah. So the question is, do the wayfinding signs and the study for Woodland Avenue, how do we feel about that? I can start with the Woodland Avenue. That's the first on my list. That's when John and Bill had met with the committee group. The larger group that was here, they went a smaller committee group and met, and John and Bill said if the monies were available in the budget this year, that they would at least have a survey, which, if I understand right, the survey would be good forever. And
Yeah,
that
it's an engineering study of the road. So it doesn't include the survey of the road.
I'm sorry, it's an engineering.
Right.
But
So
this,
all the drainage, easements, the layout, the materials. I mean, if you do the engineering study, and you couldn't fund it after that point, and you waited 10 years, you could pick that same engineering study up 10 years from now and carry on with it. Once you have it and pay for it, I mean, it's an asset that you'll always have if you want to do the road.
Yeah, but we could pay for that study 10 years from now when we're ready to do it.
Right, and the other thing is, if we have good news, or, my feeling is at this moment, I'm still not happy with 2.7. So I guess I can live with that, but we cannot live with anything more. So I think those two items are on the back burner. If we hear better news, then there's, I'm a lot more, let's go for it. But
Right.
at this time, the people in Old Town right now, 2.7 increase on their taxes and everything else that's going up is not a good thing. Not with people with fixed income.
no, and I think that the only other thing that playing the other side is whatever we do this year, and something doesn't happen down there, we got to come up with it next year, going forward. That's the only other way to look at this. We decide to take $200,000 or $300,000 this year. We better plan it's being taken care of next year.
Can we look a little bit at next year? We had a conversation about what was coming, if it does come down to the mill. And that would raise us approximately how much, best case scenario, next year?
If just the boiler started up,
Yeah. I thought our conversation was around 140,000 in
It was
taxes.
something like that.
that sounds about right.
And we have other monies, the perk money that's available to get us by for the next couple of years till everything is complete down there. But we
Yeah,
just gotta keep-
that'd be about
gotta keep
just on
knowing
the
that.
boiler itself.
So if you look at next year, our best case scenario from that situation down there, and its best case scenario, be 140,000. That's basically gonna be eaten up by raises, increases in insurance and stuff like that. So you're basically gonna go net zero if something happens down there. So you're gonna be sitting still
Same spot.
at the same spot with roughly a $550,000 deficit. Because it's gonna go up. So, we've got to deal with some of that this year.
Yes.
Just living with the best case scenario, because you can't take 500,000 or 600,000 out of reserve every year. You're gonna have none left.
Right.
So we got to do something with taxes. It's a lot easier to lower taxes than it is to raise them.
Yeah, but they will it's the snare, most of the time, they don't ever go down.
Yeah, they
that
don't.
they always go up.
Always.
Even when we get a windfall, it still seems as though we stay flat. I don't think in my 65 years living in Old Town I've ever seen taxes go down.
I'm not saying they are. We're behind
Oh, I know, but I know what you're saying.
550,000. It's
Yeah.
sitting here right now from what you'd have in an ideal budget, which is 3 times what you're gonna get next year.
No, I know what you're saying, but what I'm saying though too, let's be realistic. I mean, it was the same way when the education and supposedly they were supposed to have more money going into education and less coming out of the city. Yeah, you got it. That didn't happen.
No, I I think we just need to come up with a number that we're feeling, and I know we got to get that information, which hopefully we'll have in the next couple of weeks. But the bottom line is, we'll be behind again next year by a little bit. I think 2 years down, if everything happens, best case, 2 years down the road, we're going to be okay if everything goes the way that they're talking. So we do have monies to offset. They will run out sooner or later. We have to start dealing with this, which is why I suggested a 3 to 4. But I was hoping to get better news Friday that would get us the 3. EJ, how you feeling?
The Woodland Ave project, is that the 68?
No, that's the
28.
28. That's coming out of reserve
Okay.
for that.
It's 28, yeah.
We can get it down between 3 and 3.4, I'm fine.
What would be the end goal with the engineering project in Woodland Avenue? Are we looking at end goal pave it?
Right.
Is that end goal? Okay.
But over, if I understood it correct, it's not like a 1 year deal. It's like John suggested it. I thought somebody said something, whether it's you or John, this could be a 10-year project, so much each year going forward. So it's not a big budget hit each
I
year.
don't think it would have to be 10 years, but it would have to be over several years to make it reasonable.
So we would want to get the engineering done sooner rather than later.
Right.
Yeah.
And the monies are there in that reserve account.
They are at 3.4%.
They are. Yep.
Well, actually, it depends, because if you don't do the signs, then it's not 3.4%.
Right.
It's, well, you can do that quick. It's
Danielle can plug it right in. She's got it right there.
3.1 roughly. A little less than that, 3.5.
So it'd be, the engineering would still be in, but the wayfinding would not.
And we're saying the engineer is the 28.5?
28.5, yeah.
28.5.
Is that the engineering, that one?
Yeah.
So that's 4.5.
That's what?
4.8, sorry, I left the reserve in there. 4.8. Using the 28.5
I thought
for the
if
reserve.
we took 200,000 out, we were at
Oh, I removed the 200,000.
You did?
I think we,
Without taking any money out of, we're taking the 28,000 out of reserve,
Mhm.
we're at 4.8.
4.8.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's, and we'd be at roughly 2.7 something, or 2.8, if we took 200,000 out.
2.7, yes.
so we're saying the signs would wait. We do the reserve at the 28.5.
What is it if we keep the signs in?
I forget that
If you
number.
kept the sign, if you kept both of those in, we were at 3.4 roughly.
Yes. With the 200,000.
Using 200,000, right.
Using
The
200,000.
200,000 to reduce it.
Right.
Or 263,000, if you want to say it that way.
I mean, I think we ought to clear that up. I think, are we all in agreement at least the 200,000 to get it
I
down?
want to know what that does to our fund.
Brings it down to 1.1 million.
1.1. Mhm.
Are we in the percentage that we should be? City of the size, as far as having funds available?
Well, we still
You
got
could
that.
take that money out of the PERT money.
Right, the perk money's coming. That's
Out of our
700,000.
general fund.
Well, that makes more sense to me, is to do that.
But isn't the
general
perk
fund,
money
actually,
gonna?
we're just gonna add the
Isn't
PERT
that
money to the
Right, we're
general
gonna add the
fund.
PERT
The
money
general
back
fund
in.
anyways.
Right, exactly.
Matter of semantics, but you got 645,000, Bill, coming in
Yeah, it's
from
gonna
PERT?
be, it'll be around 730.
Right.
Well, they've upped it again?
Yeah, it'll be
No,
about
that was-
730.
That was the
So
number.
you got 730 coming in to add to the reserve account.
Correct. But again, there's a percentage that a city of our size should have in that fund balance.
Yes, the question is, what should it be if we follow MMA guidelines with our budget and what we have for expenditures? What should we have in reserve?
I do not have the answer.
Yeah, I mean, you got 12 months of operating, 12-month budget. We're easily can cover 3 months worth of operation.
Yeah,
Okay,
my
and that's,
understanding is
and
it's
that,
3
if I
months.
remember
Just as a
right,
rule of
3
thumb.
months.
that's
Yeah.
the rule of thumb,
Yeah.
yeah, if
That's
I
not even
remember right.
counting adding the perk money.
Right.
So if you take 200,000 out, you're gonna add another 535,000 in anyways.
But the thing is, if we do that, and we do it the way that you said, Stan, that when the perk money, that's gonna put in that balance, fund balance. We can't keep doing it because you're gonna run out of that
It's gonna leave you
$700,000.
about 500,000 of the print money
Yeah.
that you're gonna add to
Still
the
gonna add 500
fund
grand in.
balance that we have at this
Correct.
point in time. That's correct.
We've been robbing Peter to pay Paul for a long time.
We have a chance to save ourselves now, though.
I-
We could
I
look
hope.
optimistically
Yeah.
at it.
Yep, I don't disagree.
Do you see any of the other things going out to Juniper Ridge, the generating station or the gas station over
They-
to across from Governor's?
RH Foster, I don't know. I haven't heard anything on that. No. And
That's not a lot of money anyway.
No.
Technically,
Mm-mm.
if you,
It's not.
it's 60,000
Yeah.
taxes,
Not.
so it's, but if you took those two, that would be the best case scenario down at the mill.
I mean, the difference is when you look at these numbers this year too, we finally bottomed out as far as losing valuation. I mean, you're gonna,
This is it. I mean, this is the worst year we're gonna have as far as that.
yep.
3
Well-
months of our expenses would be $4 million of the entire budget of the 16 million.
School, all the school and
Of
everything.
the school and
right.
everything. It would be 2.5 million of just our budget, not with the property, the county tax and the tip. So we want to have between 2.4 million and 4 million in our fund to have the 3-month reserve.
Reserves.
Looking at everything we've been doing economic developing wise, I personally think we ought to have the signs. We want people to come to Old Town. We want them to know what we have. They need to how to get here and how to get around. I personally feel like we should have them. I know it's a lot of money. I haven't got it to give you, but
No, I think with everything that's going on downtown, all the renovations, I think
we
that's.
need it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I agree with you, Jan. Carol, what are your thoughts? I mean, once again, this is just the first
Yeah.
reading, so we got time, but we just at least ought to get some things out there.
I would like to see it between 3 and 4.
What'd she say?
3 and 4.
Like, see that,
3 and 4.
between 3 and 4%.
Okay. Well, I also agree with that.
John?
I don't think if we raise taxes, we're ever gonna get it back. And I think that as a city as a whole, we're operating in a hole every year. And we continue to operate in that hole year in, year out. And I think we have to have a fairly serious conversation about the services we provide to the community and how high we wanna drive this tax rate to continue where we're at. 3 or 4 is too high. We hurt the most vulnerable people in our community when we raise it like that. Those are the people that can't afford to pay it, that are making a lot harder choices than we are sitting here. So I'd like to see it down around that 2.7 number.
How much more do we have to take to get there?
To get us to 2
Take
points.
263,000 out of fund balance. You could do both of those things and be at the 2.7.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
How much?
3.4%.
So, I guess my question to you is, you're not gonna be here. I know we wanna hear some news from the university. So what are you thinking?
If the news for the university is yes, I think we ought to take 263,000 out of fund balance and be at the 2.7.
Okay.
That's my opinion as it stands.
And I concur with that.
I do.
And if it's not,
If it's not good, then I think we take all these things out and don't pay for any of them. We're there as low as we can go. And if it's 3.4% with those altos in there, or it wouldn't be 3.4. It'd be 2.7 without us putting Woodland Avenue or Juniper Ridge in there, and that's where we are this year.
all right?
Still, we're 2.7 no matter what. I
Right.
just wouldn't
Yes.
pay for the signs, and I wouldn't pay for Woodland Avenue if the answer down there is no.
Right.
Then we've got to take a serious look at the budget and see where we're gonna come up with 450,000 another year.
Well, and I think that's what John's saying
have to
now, that we
cut
gotta talk
some
about
city
Size of
services.
services
Exactly.
is the issue. We can't just continually say, we're just gonna continue to raise taxes to match this. There is a breaking point, and when you look at who you're really hurting by raising taxes, you're hurting the most vulnerable people in the community by doing it.
Right. Were we all in agreement as far as the heavy equipment and gravel roads? I assumed, I gathered, 'cause that was gonna take us down that from 6 to 5. That's what I'm assuming, because I really haven't heard much, so I'm assuming
Yeah.
we're already,
gotta go.
that's gonna get us down there, so that's, okay, so Bill, you got that one. That's a for sure thing, at least, Danielle. So that starts us at 5%, and then we can hear whatever we're gonna hear over the next couple weeks, and when we meet again for the budget, we can see where we're gonna settle out. Okay, so my question is there anyone from the audience that would like to give some feedback? This is just the first reading, so when we have a second one, we'll have it for public hearing also.
When is the next one?
19th, June 19th.
June 19th? That's a Monday too, right?
Yes, yep.
I think I can make
And
that
nothing's to say that just, we have it then, that if we still haven't heard anything, or if we might hear something, I mean, we've tabled things before and pushed it back a little further, because we had to wait to hear what the state had to say. So, could end up tabling the second reading till late.
Is there a deadline, though, when we're supposed to finish it?
We've gone pretty late before, and we had to, I forget what Miles called it, but we had to do something to.
Yeah, we've never extended into July. We
I
could.
thought we went the end of June on one.
We can. I mean, our budget goes through the end of June. If we
June,
went into July, we'd
Okay.
have to extend our,
Existing budget.
Continuing
Yeah,
funding
yeah.
That's,
resolution.
okay, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And the existing
The
budget.
Yeah.
Continuing funding resolution.
Right, and typically you just do it for the bare minimum.
Right.
You know, the payroll benefits and stuff.
So, just 2 seconds, go back to the school item. If they get additional funding, what is, you said there's something in their,
their spending resolution that they passed is that any additional funding will be used to offset tax increase. So it's going to go down. That's the biggest, the number they have in there is the largest amount.
okay.
So any additional funding they receive from now on will just reduce that amount.
So if they all pass this budget with that 100 million going to education, we're gonna get some more of that.
Yep.
Which will just keep reducing this down. And that, who knows when they settle their budget on the state. Which, once again, we might end up tabling ours just to see what happens on that end too.
Can discuss it.
Yep.
Whatever direction you want to go in.
Okay, is there anyone from the audience that would like to discuss this item?
I'm Ty Sullivan. I live on Woodland Avenue. We've got a $16.2 million budget. We have 8,000 people, residents in this city. Don't you think it's a shame that there aren't people here having a discussion about this, citizens? Asking questions, debating the numbers. I wonder why I'm the only one. I can offer this suggestion. You're having a conversation up there amongst yourselves. We can't hear you sitting there. Sometimes I can hear you when I go online, but I shouldn't have to leave a public meeting and go on a computer to hear your dialogue. The only person I can hear is Councilor Peterson on a consistent basis. I've asked you about this a number of times, Councilor Mahan. You got microphones 2 feet away from your faces, and you're speaking in conversational tones. It isn't that hard. It's rude. And it's affecting this process, I believe. My first question. For the 2016-17 budget on the appropriation summary, it was $9.1 million, the approved 2016-17 budget. The adjusted budget was 9.9, an increase of 9.1%. I'm wondering, how does that happen? It's an increase of $830,000. What is the point of a budget if a line item goes from $84,000 to $195,000 or $103,000 to $198,000? That's economic development and information technology.
Which one is it? So economic development is what we're looking at?
Not really. It's if you budget 9.1 million and you end up at 9.9 million, how does that happen? A 9% change.
And this is the 16 to 17 we're talking about?
Yes.
Some of those are carry forward numbers. So when Miles made that adjustment in there, which year to year, and I don't have those carry forward numbers, I can get those and bring them in. There was almost $600,000, $630,000 worth of carry forward numbers in those projects. So when he shows those numbers on there, he's going to show that adjustment to those carry forward numbers. Some of that's in paving.
We have carry forwards every year, don't we?
Yes. So when he shows that adjusted budget number, he's going to show those carry forwards to reflect that in that number.
What does carry forward mean?
For all intents and purposes.
Yep.
What'd you say, Stan?
Does that help with you? Does that help with your question? We were on budget this year for all intents and purposes. There's other financing items like the carry forwards that he's talking about that affect that bottom line, but it's bookkeeping and not actual expenditures.
It's actually monies we didn't use.
Correct.
It's monies we didn't use, so we just have to put them on, show them, report them.
Monies we didn't use the year before, but
Right.
they're carried forward, so they become part of the budget. The same way I was talking earlier about the surveying thing, we can't just take that money and spend it and not make it part of the budget.
Okay. On page 10 of the budget, the economic development. This is by no means a criticism of Mr. Harriman. I feel that anybody who drives an Austin Healey is an asset to this community. But I'm wondering, since we've had this discussion before about contract versus employee for economic development, or for any department for that matter, it seems like we're spending for a contract service the same amount we would spend to have an economic development manager. Page 10, economic development.
Item number 0299.
Oh, in this one.
And
Okay.
Just get past all
So
this other
if
stuff.
we're spending a similar amount for a contractor, as we would for an employee, what are the pros and cons? And I guess my one question regarding this would be, how many other communities does Mr. Harriman represent versus if he was an employee of this town, or we had a economic developer person on staff? That's all that person would do, is represent this community 100%. Does Mr. Harriman represent other communities?
I don't know that answer, but I do know that we don't give him any benefits, correct? This is just salary.
Correct. I mean, if you look at a full-time economic development director, average salary for a community this size is going to be in the mid-70s. That's the salary with no
Plus
benefits.
the benefits, right.
So you're going to be probably in the low 90s between salary and benefit cost.
Which is what we paid him, $86,000 in, which is the total amount for expended in 2016. It's $86,000.
But that wasn't paid to him directly.
I'm sorry?
Those, again, what's that?
I didn't hear you.
Some of that wasn't paid to him directly in salary.
So other contractual service isn't all Mr. Harriman?
Not all of his salary, no.
How much of it is?
Around 65. I can get you the exact number. It's about 65,000 a year.
Do you know how many communities he works for?
It was multiple before. I mean, he's essentially does Old Town now. He's cut back, and I certainly don't want to speak for Ron. He's sitting in the crowd if he would like to speak. He does some downtown grants for other towns, but certainly has cut back dramatically since he's taken over Old Town.
Okay.
Happy to respond.
Yeah, we don't need to have department heads going back and forth. That's my only thing. We don't need that. We've stopped that years ago, and we don't need that happening. So that's the number without benefits. You're saying about 65,000.
Yep.
Okay.
And I can get the exact number if you want it. I don't have it right here.
Okay. Well, it's encouraging to me to hear that the majority of his focus is on Old Town versus spreading his talents and efforts among 3 or 4 different communities. On page 11, next page, Information Technology Service, other contractual services. Budgeted in 2016 was $170,000. Budgeted in 2017 was $96,000. This year we're requesting $96,000. May I ask what that is?
That is Biz Compass GWI. Again, that's our IT. So that's the IT support for the entire city. Firewalls. We have a couple servers still, but we've moved away from that. So a lot of that's cloud services. We don't have an IT department, so that's.
And the reason I ask is the same thing. What are the pros and cons of contracting it versus having it in-house?
Yeah.
When you get to these amounts that are the amount of salary and benefits,
I see what you're getting at.
a
You're getting
person who
close
is
to full-time.
dedicated.
Right.
We're not going
Town.
to get cloud services and stuff like that in-house, though. And that's a substantial amount of the cost. It's the cloud services.
Yep.
They don't do a whole heck of a lot for us for IT work since we don't have servers and stuff anymore.
We also get a larger depth of services by contracting with a company. It's more than one person's knowledge. We have, their help team, which could have five or six different people who would offer a different specialty for us, something that we wouldn't get with an in-house IT.
Okay. The airport on the next page, page 12. So for this year, the manager requests $294,000. The revenue that I add up on the revenue sheet is $159,000. Is it so that the airport operates at a $135 loss, or will operate at a $135,000 loss?
No, because part of that other capital outlay on line 414,
Yep.
that comes from Hangar Reserve account. That's actually, that account is paid for by Hangar Rentals. So the pilots are actually paying for that cost. When you see that capital outlay number in there under that 414, there's a revenue line that offsets that. You'd have to take that away from your $130,000.
The hangar rentals are in the revenue $85,000. So the other capital outlay is to construct hangars?
Part of it's for paving at the airport. But that hangar reserve account, when those revenues come in, and again, I can go get that information, which I'm trying to make notes here as I move along, those hangar rentals pay for that reserve account that's established. It's been there for years.
Okay.
And so that amount of money is going to come out of that hangar reserve account, which has been built by the pilots who rent those.
The
hangars.
$90,000 came out of the hangar reserve.
It will, yes. There's
Okay.
a revenue that offsets that.
All right. So then $135,000 minus $90,000, it's just a $45,000 operating loss?
Yep.
If I look at the budget that we have here that's printed for us, the projected revenue is $243,200, and projected expenses is $294, so it's roughly a $61,000 differential.
Loss?
Loss, if you will, yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm not working from that book. I had time to spend with the original document, but I think we're looking at the same numbers.
Basically, yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
On page 18.
Page 18. The microphone's a little better, Ty. Can you hear us a little better now?
Yes.
We just turned the volume up, sir.
Never mind, page 18. I do have to ask this question, though. On page 23.
23.
And I'm really reluctant to, because it is concerns the police department, and I sure don't want to piss them off. And also, I have immense respect for the police department and believe in supporting them to the fullest extent. But there is an example here on line, okay, I'm on page 23, police department, line 315 for clothing. And so, if you just follow along that line, I wonder, in 2015, 16, $5,700 was budgeted, but the amount expended was $18,000. That looks on paper like an example of blowing the budget. And then the next year, $8,000 was budgeted, and $11,000 was spent. And this year, $22,000 is requested. How do you interpret that? If you assign a budget number, are you not held to it? If you say you have $6,000 to spend on clothing, how do you end up spending $18,000? And this is just an example that I found. There may be dozens of examples in here, but this is the best example I could find of what looks to be a budget amount that got blown by 300%.
I don't know the exact year, whether it was last year or the year before. I think it was last year when we hired the Chief Wilcox. I know he changed the type of uniform that the police are wearing now. I think they were wearing more traditional, and now it's more of a SWAT type of uniform, or tactical. Other way around. So I think that was last year?
It's been 2 years. but
2
you
years.
also have to take into account the turnover that we've had in each of the
That's right.
Right, because they have to get different sizes and everything else. Yes, and we did have a big turnover this last year. As far as this year, I know that there was a request from the chief to get dress uniforms. I believe the city manager has taken that out of the budget as of now.
Yep.
That was $14,000. So that has been taken out.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. That's understandable to me. That makes sense.
And we left it in there because it was a request from the chief, and we still hadn't really talked about as far as the council, but Bill has taken that out.
Yep. But as a taxpayer, when you see a line item that's blown by 300%, you have to wonder.
Well, and to be honest with you, we'll stick with the police just on the salaries. It's just a lot of that's too that there was a police officer that used to be with the DEA or something like that. Now we've taken on that full salary, so that's why there's an increase in that line also because of that reason. We have no officer now that is with the DEA, I believe. So that increased the budget alone must have been.
That was in a separate line item previously.
Right.
And we just rolled that into this year's budget.
And put it under the actual salaries. Right. So that's why there's such an increase there. I do get what you're saying, though, about some of the lines as far as if we hired a full-time person compared to what we're paying contractual, but I think there's a lot of things that go with it, as Stan was saying with the IT and economic development with, we're not paying the benefits and stuff. And
Yes, I agree. I think it's particularly germane to economic development, though, where I was concerned about spreading his efforts among communities versus focusing on
just Old Town. Yep. And I will say that Ron's done a great job. We've had a lot of irons in the fire that I've always said, and some pan out, some don't, for different reasons. And thought for sure 2 things were going to happen, and they just didn't at the last minute. And that's not Ron's fault. That's just other things from the companies that decide to do things different. So.
Understood. Last page, 36.
36. Capital projects.
On March 20th, a number of citizens from Woodland Avenue came and spoke to a committee meeting about Woodland Avenue. And it's discouraging to see that there is a line for Woodland Avenue in the budget, but there's no appropriation. And it's surprising to me to see that there was $15,000 budgeted in 2015-16, and it didn't get spent. I heard Woodland Avenue mentioned in earlier discussions here. I couldn't tell what you were saying. Couldn't hear you. So
it was, as far as Woodland Avenue, it was thrown out there to pay for the Woodland Avenue engineering study, and we would use monies from the community center reserve to do that. Because I believe Bill and John had met with a committee, a smaller committee from Woodland Avenue, and talked about if there was monies in the budget that maybe we could fund a Woodland Avenue engineering study.
Why wouldn't it be on this line right here?
Well, because the council hasn't said yes to it yet.
Will be.
That's what we were talking about that tonight. That was part of that.
If it flies, it will be on that line.
Right.
Well, isn't this how you make it fly? You put it on this, manager requests it?
Right, but
You did here at the meeting after this was
right,
done.
the book was printed before we.
Did it tonight.
Right. The book
Tonight?
was printed.
Okay, so what does that amount?
It was $28,500 that would pay for the engineering.
And that's our first step.
That's correct. Yes. Yep.
And so if in your discussions between now and the second reading, is that when it takes place?
Yes, when we approve it, yes. Yeah, when we vote on the budget.
If you approve of it, it'll be on this line.
Correct.
Okay. Well, that would be...
I mean, we're not going to reprint the book, I'm assuming, are we? Are we going to reprint?
No.
No, we'll have the final.
We'll have just the final, yes. Yep.
That would be great to see. Also on this line is Poplar Street. And I think it could be said that Poplar Street, the end of Poplar Street, as it approaches Woodland Avenue, is the worst paved road in Old Town. Maybe an argument about that, maybe not. It's in the top 3. There's money there budgeted on line 240 for Poplar Street and doesn't get spent. I know it's not much, but it suggests to me that there's an awareness that it's a mess, and yet why doesn't something happen there? So in all 3 cases, there's $15,000 for Woodland, there's $6,500 for Poplar. This is budget year 2015-16, and it looks like it didn't get expended. Why wouldn't it get expended? If it's there, why wouldn't it get spent when the need is so great?
I can't remember back at those budget discussions, but the council must have suggested to cut a certain dollar amount, and I'm assuming must have got cut at that point. I can't remember.
15,
I don't remember what we
you.
did.
I'm sorry, doesn't budget for that year mean it's in the budget, it's approved? Isn't that column the budget?
Budget's a plan.
Yeah, and like I said, it could have been something during the year that we had to cut something. I don't remember what we did that year.
So
I really don't.
But
The other part of that is, or could be, you know, is the money was spent out there, and the accountant just took it out of the Public Works budget instead of deducting it off Woodland Avenue. I'm pretty sure something happened out on Woodland Avenue every year.
No.
And if if Mr. Rulo doesn't identify that we took this exactly out of Woodland Avenue, it just comes out of the Public Works budget. So it could have been spent out there easily and just deducted from the wrong place.
Okay.
And when it comes to Woodland, that's a gravel road, which is already in his budget under gravel roads anyways. John
I
has
hate
that.
to think that we're going to get to the point where we start listing streets and doing a budget for a street.
Right.
Okay, but, and to the DPW's credit, they do work very hard on trying to preserve Woodland Avenue, and we do appreciate that. But when you see a dollar amount here, I assume that's over and above just the normal maintenance. That's for something special. And when I see the amount in the budget and I see that it wasn't expended, okay, can you see why I would wonder about that?
Yep, I can. Absolutely.
But I understand what you're saying about the
I'm pretty
accounting.
sure this year we spent far more out of Public Works budget for Woodland Avenue
Than we ever have.
than we should have.
Oh, that hurts. Should?
Just say proportionally.
Have you driven?
If you look at College Avenue Extension and the condition of that road, there's probably more people drive over College Avenue Extension than do Woodland Avenue.
That's one way to look at it. Another way is the tax revenue
sitting on
from
the
that
city
district.
council, that's kind of how I have to look at it, is everybody in this community has the rights to the roads. It'd be wonderful if we had tons of money and could do whatever to any road. I mean, I've had people complain to me about paving College Avenue Extension since I've been on the council on a regular basis. Woodland Avenue should be paved also, but
There's only so much
somewhere
money.
along the line, you know, we don't have that much money.
Understood.
I'm not trying to hurt, I'm just trying to say, but, you know, you have to look at for the good of the entire community. I understand you guys are out there and you pay a ton of taxes and whatnot, but also there are other people in the communities that pay a ton of taxes and drive over the other roads. There was a point last year where I wouldn't drive over College Avenue Extension. And if more people drive there than they do Woodland Avenue, shouldn't we be fixing that?
That's one way of looking at it. On Woodland Avenue, you have no other choice. You have to drive on it. And there are times when you can't drive on Woodland Avenue in a passenger car either. And
I know that's why we put more money in it this year.
Yep, yep. But you said more than you should.
Well, I didn't necessarily mean more than I should, because it's, you know, it needed to be fixed to the point where it is. There's no doubt about that.
Okay.
Maybe should was a poor choice of words.
Okay. Well, I think my last remark would be that if Woodland Ave were to be paved, we wouldn't be having this discussion. And at one of our meetings, it was said that if it were paved, it would pay for itself in a reasonable period of time because of the amount of time, materials, effort, blood, sweat, and tears that have been going into trying to maintain a gravel road. If you pave it, then the DPW can spend their
I guess
time.
I'd ask the same question of John Rule about the Kirkland Road and College Avenue extension. If they were all paved, but where are you going to come up with the $2 million to pave those roads? We don't have it. You think people in town would be excited if we did a 15% tax increase so we could pave those 4 dirt roads in town? I suspect there'd be a mutiny. And I wouldn't be here anymore, for sure. So, you know, we got this sum of money and you got to spend it the best way that you can. You know, John's department's hurting, the police department's hurting, the fire department, we postponed them buying a fire truck because we don't have the money. You know, if the fire truck that we have dies on the way to a fire, what are people going to say? You got this much money, that's what you got. Sorry. I wish we could pave them all. I wouldn't have to listen to any of the complaints.
Mm-hmm. Of those 3 roads, the density and the shortness of Woodland Avenue, I think, would make it, and the fact that it is the only route. There's an alternative to Kirkland, an alternative to College Ave. But Woodland
Yeah, but
Ave
I
is the only-
suspect if you lived just beyond the dirt road on College Avenue Extension, and we made you drive around the Bennick Road to get home, you wouldn't be a happy camper. Because you got a road that goes right straight to your house. I mean, everybody has an argument. I've listened to them from every side, and I'm just saying that, you know, we do the best we can.
Yep. Well, all I can do is present the
Yep.
perspective of the residents of Woodland Avenue.
Yep.
And I don't speak for all the residents of Woodland Avenue. I speak for myself.
Yep.
Thank you very much for
Thanks for your
answering my
input.
questions, and I would urge you to use the microphones, please.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else from the audience that would like to discuss this? Close the public hearing. The Old Town City Council considers scheduling a second reading for final approval on the FY 2017-2018 municipal, county, and school budgets. Councilor Peterson.
Resolved, the Old Town City Council hereby approves scheduling a second reading on June 19th, 2018. Shouldn't it say 17? For final approval of the proposed FY 2017-18 municipal, county, and school budget. The proposed budget calls for the city expenditures of $10,035,357, Penobscot County taxes of $627,134, and RSU expenditures of $5,559,615 for a total city-county RSU budget of $16,222,106, with a total city revenue of $6,099,643 for net property tax requirement of $10,122,463.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
On the
Thanks.
discussion? All those in favor? None opposed. Okay, moving on to the next one. The Old Town City Council conduct a public hearing on the proposed FY 2017-2018 pollution control budget containing gross appropriations of $5,154,969, user fee revenue of $4,125,800, debt redemption of $405,697, anticipated transfers from reserve accounts of $435,000, with a net appropriation to fund balance of $188,472. Open the public hearing.
We didn't really have any proposed changes from the last meeting from the May 15th. Biggest change in the sewer budget was obviously the rate increase that came through, and that was all predicated off of Wright Pierce's rate study. That was for 3 years, and that was a 5% rate increase for this year.
Okay. Any questions for Bill or Danielle on this? Or Dave? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one major change that's been added into this budget that happened a couple of years ago, and it's from Mike Rollins from USDA. We had to add a department for short-lived assets, which never used to be in here before. They want us to build a reserve for that, and that was for some of their smaller vehicles and stuff, and that got added, I think it was 2 years ago. That's an $84,000 budget line that's in there that we had to put into the budget.
Okay. And that was and Danielle did a separate book on this one, correct, this year? Because it's really a separate budget.
Yes. It's an enterprise account, so we really shouldn't mingle the two together.
Right. Okay, any questions? Anyone from the audience that would like to come up and discuss this?
Hi, I'm Ty Sullivan from Woodland Avenue. The fund balance, the $188,472 transfer from a fund balance, where does that fund balance, where does it come from?
That's from their reserve accounts, out of that enterprise account. When they receive revenues in, part of that rate study is parts of that go to reserve accounts. That's been built up over time. They've got a bunch of different reserve accounts that those rates actually go to.
Nice. So the pollution control department is self-sufficient?
Yes. With that rate increase, I mean, that's part of that.
Transferring their own money
Right.
in order to balance the budget?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else? Close the public hearing. Middletown City Council consider scheduling a second reading for final approval on the FY 2017-2018 pollution control budget. Councilor May.
Resolved, the Old Town City Council hereby approves scheduling a second reading on June 19, 2017 on the proposed FY 2017-2018 pollution control budget. Excuse me, containing gross appropriations of $5,154,969, user fee revenue of $4,125,800, debt redemption of $405,697, and anticipated transfer from reserve accounts of $435,000 with a net appropriation to fund balance of $188,472.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Jan, discussion? All those in favor? None opposed. I actually went in after Ty said something. Irene turned it up all the way, but they're going in and out. 1 minute you can hear me fine, the next minute it's going lower. So I think it is something to do with the system.
No.
Because she has it on max right now, and you can hear me. But in a few seconds, it's going to go down. All right, so moving on to new.
You know the option that you always have available.
Yes.
We can get the hanging mics.
And we just clip them to ourselves. He did say that.
Can actually
The
hang
gentleman
them off
said-
they can hang them off the ceiling here,
Right.
but they're going to hear everything you say.
Then he said about clipping too, right? We could have something that would clip to us.
You can.
Better hang.
So, okay, so we're moving on to old business. There is none. New business. What is it? Item number 5. City Council will review and discuss a proposed recreational marijuana prohibition ordinance. Now, that is in our packet. And I believe, where is it? Okay, right there, chapter 24. So I just wanted to get this reviewed tonight so we could put it on the next council meeting to have the first reading. And then the second one would be in the meeting in July, late July. Talking to Patty about the first meeting in July. It's pretty close to around the holiday. I'm not sure who's going to be around, so unless there's something huge on the agenda, we could maybe not have that first meeting in July. So this would be on the second one. So
It's all right with me, huh?
I would ask, has anybody read this to make sure I'm assuming legal has read all this and we're good to go?
Yes.
And it has everything in there that we wanted. I believe it has those items.
Yeah, if you look at section 12 on there, that will list everything that it prohibits, which I believe covers all the council's concerns.
Okay. So any questions on this at all from anybody? I mean, we have it from now until the next meeting to make sure we review it, but then it will be ready to be voted on at the next meeting, and then we just do this second one, the meeting in late July. Okay? Good? All right, that was just for informational purposes. So the next thing is we do have, before executive session, could I get a motion to discuss an item that is not on the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
John. Discussion? All those in favor? None opposed. The item is the city council consider accepting the after deadline redemption on the foreclosed property of Kaja Holdings 2 LLC located at 113 Lincoln Street for payment of real estate taxes and sewer fees in the amount of $2,119.12. Council McLeod.
Resolve the Old Town City Council hereby accepts an after deadline redemption on foreclosure property for, how'd you pronounce that?
Kaja.
Kaja Holdings 2 LLC located at 113 Lincoln Street for payment of 2014 through 2017 sewer fees in the amount of $1,159.53 and 2017 real estate taxes in the amount of $724.30, plus $150 late redemption fee for a total amount of $2,119.12, which includes interest and lien cost, and further authorize the city manager to execute a municipal quick claim deed.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Anything?
No, this will bring them all up to date.
Okay. All those in favor? None opposed. Okay, moving on to the last item. City Council consider going into executive session for the purpose of discussing a personnel matter. Councilor May.
Resolve the Old Town City Council hereby approves going into executive session pursuant to MRSA Title 405, Section 6A, for the purpose of discussing a personnel matter.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor? None opposed. It is 8:43. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight.